Shall we start? Yasmin can't read, Sunki can read, and Kiran can read. Archana reads quite often. So today maybe Sunki, you can start.
Yes, I will read.
Yeah, go ahead.
It is then this double wall of self-imprisonment, this self-fortification in the bounds of a surface ego, that is, the cause of our limited knowledge or ignorance, and if this self-imprisonment were the sole character of our existence, the ignorance would be irremediable. But in fact, this constant outer ego building is only a provisional device of the consciousness force in things, so that the secret individual, the spirit within, may establish a representative and instrumental formation of itself in physical nature, a provisional individualization in the nature of the ignorance, which is all that can at first be done in a word emerging out of a universal inconscience. Our self-ignorance and our world ignorance can only grow towards integral self-knowledge and integral world knowledge in proportion as our limited ego and its half a blind consciousness open to a greater inner existence and consciousness and a true self-being, and become aware too of the not self outside it also as a self. On one side, a nature constituent of our own nature; on the other, an existence which is a boundless continuation of our own self-being. Our being has to break the walls of ego consciousness, which it has created. It has to extend itself beyond its body and inhabit the body of the universe. In place of its knowledge by indirect contact, or in addition to it, it must arrive at a knowledge by direct contact and proceed to a knowledge by identity. Its limited finite of self has to become a boundless finite and an infinite.
Boundless finite, very interesting phrase. Finite is usually bounded, but here is talking about boundless finite. Okay. So it's a very interesting phrase. We'll discuss that. So now we can do one thing. I will quickly read the summary and then we'll go sentence by sentence so that we get this 1 second. Yeah, I got it. So I'm reading the summary and then we'll go sentence by sentence because there are very interesting things to see. What do you mean by boundless finite? It seems to be a contradiction. So we'll have a look at it. So what he's saying in this paragraph, it is then this double wall of self-imprisonment which is also a self-fortification and protection which causes our ignorance. Our ignorance is caused by the double wall. What is the double wall also we will discuss. But if these two walls were permanent, our ignorance would be permanent without possibility of cure or redemption. Fortunately, they are not permanent. They can be broken down. But how can we break it down? By yoga or by development through many, many lives of the self. But we must note that the artificial separation by the device of ego is a temporary creation of nature to protect us. As we grow in consciousness, strength and largeness, these walls can be dismantled and we can open outwards and identify ourselves with the universe, which is a cosmic consciousness, and plunge inwards also to plumb the secrets of our inner existence. We can go outwards and become one with the cosmos. We can also go inwards and know our secret existence. Our consciousness can break inward by the silence of the vital movements, and that is samatha, and outwards by the silence of the mental movement, self, witness, Brahman. So, the finite small individual can become the vast cosmic individual or person. Okay, so just once again. Yeah, the cosmic, just once again. I have to add person or individual. Cosmic individual. Individual. Yeah. So this is what he's saying. There are two walls, and now we will look at the each sentence. Some of them are very interesting, and what it means exactly, we have to see. Just 1 second. We are doing life divine, right? So we are doing life divine, and we want to save what I did just now. Right. So yeah. Okay. So we start looking at the paragraph. Yeah. It is then. Yeah. It is then. It is then this double wall of self-imprisonment. So what is this double wall of self-imprisonment? We should have a very clear idea. Okay? There is the inner wall and there is the outer wall. So the outer wall is very clearly your ego, that which makes you feel separate from everybody else. Because if the ego is not there, you can expand yourself into the cosmos. Okay, so that is the outer wall. What about the inner wall? The inner wall is created by all our senses going outwards. All our senses are going outwards. No, there is only one sense which goes inwards, and that is your mind. Your mind can look into yourself psychologically, not physically, but psychologically, that also to a very small extent. So, we read in the summary that the going into yourself can be created by a vital quietening. Okay? The vital quietening is one that allows you to go inwards, look into inwards, which is samatha. So you have to develop samatha. No movement in the vital. The vital movement is consisting of liking and disliking, and that's a movement. Okay, appreciation and depreciation. Okay, respect and honor, love and hate. These dualities. You have to remove the dualities. Then there is a vital samatha. Samatha at the vital, but there can be also samatha in the body and also a samatha in the mind. But if you make your vital absolutely calm and quiet, you can look into yourself. So that's the inner wall. So these two walls have to be broken. Fortunately, they are not permanent, and they can be broken by yoga. It is then this double wall of self-imprisonment, this self-fortification in the bounds of a surface ego that is the cause of our limited knowledge or ignorance. And if this self-imprisonment were the whole character of our existence, the ignorance would be irremediable. Remedy, irremediable. That means it cannot be cured. So, fortunately, it's not permanent. These walls can be dismantled, just as in any house also. Walls can be dismantled easily. And you can make a room much bigger by breaking down the walls. So, this is what you say. If this imprisonment is the whole character of our existence, the ignorance would be in the middle. But in fact, this constant outer ego building is only a provisional device of the consciousness force. Now, the very interesting what Shanvi is saying, your ignorance is actually your protection. So that is what we have to see, that everything in the physical world, however negative it sounds, is actually a very big help and another function. That function, the function of all that seems negative is very important. So ego is the one that protects you from the vast cosmic forces. Just imagine even the sun, the sunlight, okay? Even when it is 90 million miles away, in summer you feel it impossible to stand the heat. So if you are very near the sun, what will happen to you? You would evaporate. So exactly in the same way, when you see a storm or a tornado, we feel that, my God, what force. But that is just 0.01% of the force that is there in the universe. Okay? So you need protection. And that's exactly why you are protected. Because remember also that prematurely, if the walls break down, then you can be absolutely disoriented. You can go mad, to make it to use a very striking phrase. You can lose your balance, you can go absolutely crazy. So you need protection. So the ego is protecting you. You are being protected from the infinite outside and the infinite inside by the two walls. They are your fortifications. They use the word fortification. Okay, so remember that. Ego is the helper, ego is the bar. And how is it the helper? By allowing you to develop yourself. Okay, that's why. That is the cause of our ignorance. So the ignorance is actually protecting you. Now, I go to the next sentence. But in fact, this constant outer ego building is only a provisional device of the consciousness force in things. So that the secret individual, and who is that? The spirit within. Okay? So the spirit within, also, there are two ways of looking at the spirit within. Your individual psychic being is also essentially the divine. Okay? But it is sleeping. In the beginning, it is sleeping and it has to be woken up. And when it wakes up, it can become a very powerful force. But there is another spirit also which is there inside everybody. And that is the divine consciousness, the divine presence. There is a small difference between the two. The spirit is there even in a stone, but in the stone, there is no psychic being. So therefore, you can say that there is a slight difference between the two. The spirit within may establish a representative and instrumental formation of itself in physical nature. So let's look at the sentence carefully. But in fact, this constant outer ego building is only a provisional device of the consciousness force in things. It is there everywhere, not only in human beings, in things, so that the secret individual, the spirit within, may establish a representative and instrumental formation of itself in physical nature. And what is this representative and instrumental formation? Your body, mind and life. And that also, in the beginning, it is not full. It's only a physical instrumentation. The stone, okay? The tree is already beginning to express the matter as well as vital, but no mind as yet. So slowly, this is the instrumental formation. First of all, is only physical, then it becomes physical vital, then it starts becoming physical vital mental. Even in the animals, there is a physical vital and a beginning of a mental. In man, the mental also develops, but not yet fully. In the synthesis, if you remember, Sri Aurobindo says that the mind is not yet fully developed. Okay. It is still developing. And that's so true. 90% of people are not logical. The pure mind has not yet been developed. They go only by likes and dislikes. The pure mind will go beyond liking and disliking. It can become objective. Okay, so this is what he is saying. The outer ego building creates a representative and instrumental formation. And that instrumental formation, body, mind, life, is because of the ego. A provisional individualization in the nature of the ignorance. So, nature of the ignorance, I can. So, it is the universal ignorance. When the Supreme Divine wants to manifest himself, it comes down to the, and at first it is universal. There is a universal plane of supermind, overmind, all these are universal planes. The individual is not there anywhere yet, huh? Remember. We are coming down, and we are coming down to the physical. The vast universe is physical. Okay. Then the individuality is there at the atom level of the atom. And in each atom, the divine presence is there. And because it is divine, it does not want to remain imprisoned. And therefore, it starts going back to where it came from. And that's the evolution. Okay. So slowly. And how can that divine presence in the atom increase? Because there has to be necessarily a physical body which is more capable of giving shelter to that divine presence in the atom. So, first of all, life comes up. And when a life body is there, a living body, it is definitely better than just the atom. So, the divine presence migrates from the atom into the physical, vital body. And then from there it goes on occupying bodies which are becoming more and more complex. So there are actually two evolutions. The one evolution is the divine presence which is slowly increasing in consciousness. That's the evolution of consciousness. But the evolution of consciousness is not possible unless there is a biological evolution also, because the body has to go on becoming more and more complex, So there are two evolutions. One is the individual evolution and the other is the universal evolution. The universal evolution is what Darwin spoke about, not the individual evolution. Okay, so now provisional individualization is the nature of the ignorance, which is all that can at first be done in a world emerging out of a universal inconscience. So, in the beginning, very simple. Can't do more than that. Provisional individualization. Our self-ignorance and our world ignorance. Self-ignorance, I don't know what is inside me. World ignorance, I don't know what is the nature of the physical world outside me. Can only grow towards integral self-knowledge and integral world knowledge in proportion as our limited ego and its half-blind consciousness open to a greater inner existence and consciousness and a true self-being. True self-being is your true individual. Okay? And become aware too of the not self outside it, also as self. In other words, I must remember that the universe also is part of me. I am part of the universe, but the universe also is part of me. That's what he's saying. Okay? So, integral world knowledge, what is science doing? Science is trying to get knowledge of the physical world. Can it ever get integral knowledge? Yes, it can, but ultimately. So, because as we go on progressing, man progresses, man can get integral world knowledge and self-knowledge. But can the universe get integral world knowledge? It will ultimately, when the evolution is complete in the physical world. Whether that will ever happen is another question. Because next stage is supermind. And there is evolution even beyond supermind. So the universe may, in a certain sense, not get integral world knowledge. But definitely, the individual can get integral world knowledge because he is far ahead of the collectivity. In proportion as our limited ego and its half-blind consciousness open to a greater inner existence and consciousness and a true self-being, and become aware too of the not self outside it also as itself. In fact, you have to realize that you are the cosmos. You are the psychic being within or the self, but you are also the cosmos outside. We keep repeating this. You must remember that the individual is nothing but the universe which has been condensed into a small individual. And the individual is a condensation of the universe, and the universe is an expansion of the individual. So one is going outwards and one is going inwards. There's a compression and there's an expansion. The expansion is the universe and the compression is the individual. But both are made of the same things. Okay. So now I go to the next one. Our self-ignorance and world ignorance that we read just now can only grow towards integral self-knowledge and integral world knowledge in proportion as our limited ego and its half-blind consciousness open to a greater inner existence and consciousness and a true self-being, and become aware too of the not self outside it as self. That's a cosmic consciousness. On one side, a nature constituent of our own nature. On the other, an existence which is a boundless continuation of our own self-being. So there is an infinite outwards and there is an infinite inwards. That's what is saying by this sentence. A nature which is universal and an existence which is the boundless continuation of our own self-being. So when you go into yourself also it is infinite. And when you go outside yourself also it is infinite. Inwards and outwards. Our being has to break the walls of ego consciousness which it has created. It has to extend itself beyond its body. And that's what happens because around the body there's an aura. And when you grow in consciousness and in yoga, you grow, the aura expands. It goes on expanding. I remind you about mother coming 10 miles outside Pondicherry, and she knew that she is entering Sri Aurobindo aura. Remember that? Very interesting. So it can become even cosmic by only 10 miles. In place of its knowledge by indirect contact, the indirect contact, if you remember, is use of our senses. You know the physical universe, but between the universe and yourself, there is no direct contact. There is only an indirect contact through the senses. And proceed to a knowledge by identity. The senses have to be removed and directly you will know the universe by identity. You will become what you want to know. There is no more necessity of any instrument between you and you are the knower and the known. There is no difference. It becomes one. Its limited finite of self has to become a boundless finite and an infinite. Now, a boundless finite, the finite is the individual, but when it becomes boundless, it's a way of saying cosmic consciousness. So when it says boundless finite, it appears to be a contradiction in terms. How can the finite be boundless? But that is exactly the thing. Your individual self can become a cosmic self. It is not located anywhere, but there is a person who is experiencing that. That's why it makes a lot of sense. A boundless finite. Okay. So now we can go to the next one. So Sukti read this one. Now I want to see how big is the next one. Just 1 second. It's quite. No, it's not very big. So, Kiran, maybe you can read. You have not read for some time, so you can read that. Okay. Slowly.
Yes.
Yeah. But the first
But
of these two, yeah, go ahead.
But the first of these two movements, the awakening to our inner realities, imposes itself as the prior necessity because it is by this inward self-finding that the second, the cosmic self-finding, can become entirely possible. We have to go into our inner being and to learn in it and form it. The outer mind and life and body must become for us only an antechamber. All that we are on the outside is indeed conditioned by what is within. Occult in and recesses. It is thence that come the secret initiatives, the self-effective formations, our inspirations, our intuitions, our life motives, our mind's preferences, our will's selections are actuated from there. In so far as they are not shaped or influenced by an insistence equally hidden of a surge of cosmic impacts, but the use we make of these emergent powers and these influences is conditioned, largely determined, and above all, very much limited by our outer. Then the
Your
knowledge
internet
of
is jumping, so make sure that you are speaking near the mic.
yes, yes. It is then the knowledge of this inner initiating self coupled with the accurate perception of the outer instrumental self and the part played by both of them in our building that we have to discover.
Yeah, so that's it, small para. So we will have a look at it just now, what he said. But the first of these two movements, the awakening to our inner realities. So he is talking about the first going into yourself, and the other one is going outside yourself. So the first of these two movements going inwards. The awakening to our inner realities imposes itself as a prior necessity because it is by this inward self-finding that the second, the cosmic self-finding, can become entirely possible. So what he's saying is very interesting. He's saying that if you start by going outwards, you will not get the necessity. That's exactly what science is doing. Science is going outwards. It is using senses and mind to know the universe. It will never know fully. That's what he's saying. Okay. And so if you go into yourself and find out that your true being is not a body, mind, life, but this soul within, and that can become cosmic. And then you will have knowledge of the outside world also. That's what he's saying. Okay. So it's interesting. You have to go into yourself first. Again and again, Sri repeats this everywhere, in Life Divine, in synthesis, everywhere. The first movement should always go into yourself. Inner living. In fact, there is a whole book called Living Within, edited by Dr. Dalal, A.S. Dalal. He is still living. A.S. Dalal is quite old, but he is in care. So he is the author of many, many books. Living Within, Looking Within, and several other things also. Okay? But always the within is the most important. By going within, you can ultimately also go outwards. That's what he says. Okay? We have to go into our inner being and learn to live in it and from it. Now that's interesting. In other words, when we are going outwards and using senses, we are living not from within, but from outwards. We are judging things in a very, very superficial manner. But if you go into yourself, then you can get the cosmic consciousness and you can develop a capacity to know things and know people from inward yourself. That means you're not using your instruments of senses. You are using subtler instruments. You are using instruments which are subtle. Subtle sight, subtle hearing, subtle taste, subtle smell, even subtle touch. Okay? All these are possible. So we have to go into our inner being and live and learn to live in it and from it. So once you go inwards, even your knowledge of the physical world and other people also will increase. The outer mind and life and body, must become for us only an antechamber. An antechamber is the small room or even the veranda-like thing in Tamil houses, which is before the house. So it is the outermost place. Okay, you see in the traditional Tamil houses, there's always a small place where you can sit outside. Okay, and nowadays they don't do that because it's a waste of space, they think. But it is very interesting how they used to have that small antechamber. Is not that Tamil space outside the house, but inside. When you are entering, first of all, there is a small room. That's the antechamber. So the body-mind life is only the antechamber. It is the first, the outermost part of us. All that we are on the outside is indeed conditioned by what is within, occult, secret, in our inner depths and recesses. Note the word recesses. Okay? There are small corners also within our, inside ourselves. Just as there are corners in every room in a building, this is a huge place. And he speaks about, if you remember in Savitri, if you remember, he speaks of corridors, he speaks of rooms, he speaks of large halls. All these are there within yourself when you go. Okay? So, recesses. This is a small corner. It is thence that come the secret initiatives, the self-effective formations. You want to become something, and it's self-effective. It becomes effective if you go inwards into yourself. That's what it means. If you try from outside, you may succeed to a certain extent, but it may not be full. But if you go into yourself, whatever you want to be, you can become. Our inspirations, our intuitions, our life motives, our mind's preferences, our will's selections are actuated from there, from within. Okay? Insofar as they are not shaped or influenced by an insistence equally hidden of the surge of cosmic impacts. See, he has told us that many times, that you are always, the individual is attacked by mental forces, vital forces, even physical forces. The physical forces also come into you. Okay. In fact, we know physical force, the most obvious is the food that is coming into you. Okay. But there are also, now we know that mobile phones and electrical poles, they discharge some currents, and we have seen very interesting developments. When the mobile phones are used very often, the sparrows become less and less in that place. Why? Because even their body, there's no question of vital and mind there. The body is being submitted to these forces and it's unpleasant, so they go away. Okay? So even physical forces are entering into you. You are not aware of them. Mobile waves, TV waves, radio waves, all these things come. Apart from the cosmic waves from outside. That also are there. Okay. So they are also hidden. We don't know what is coming from outside. A surge of cosmic impacts. So these impacts are coming from within and shaping your outer nature and your outer being, but also from the outside world, these things are coming into you. But the use we make of these emergent powers and these influences is conditioned, largely determined, and above all, very much limited by our outermost nature. Why is that? Because the outermost nature is the most gross and crude, okay? Whereas the inward is psychological and very subtle. And the subtle force cannot stand before the crude force. So they come. The psychic is always trying to guide you. But by the time it comes down into your outer nature, it has disappeared. Because of the grossness of the body, the impurities of the vital, and the self-assurances of the mind. So that's what the psychic influences get diminished. It is then the knowledge of this inner initiative self, initiating self. All movements are coming from within, self-coupled with an accurate perception of the outer instrumental shell and the part played by both of them in our building that we have to discover. We have to see our own being and know how the inner is shaping our outer. Okay, in fact, Ramakrishna has something very interesting to say. He says that the inner being is a real one, and the outer being is also, if you study only the outer also, there is a very clear connection between the outer physical looks and build with the inner. For instance, one example we can give is Buddha when he stands. Okay, his hands go down up to his knee level. That also is an indication. So the outer is also representative of the inner in a very gross manner. That's what he said. Okay, we have read 2 paras today, and it's time to stop. So next time we can continue. So he has told us that the inner movement is essential. Now next time, in the next para, he will tell you the outer movement, probably. Okay. So we didn't read the summary of the second one. So I try to. Yeah, I've got it. I'll just read the summary. Okay. But in the sequence of self-discovery, these are my words, which is there in the what he has said in his paragraph. The inner awakening must come first. It is our intraconscious that makes possible the rise into the infinite. The psychic emergence allows and makes safe the spiritual transformation and further ascent into the gnosis later on. In fact, if psyche doesn't come, then you can't go above. You can go above, but it is risky. In fact, it is the inner being that largely determines, secretly of course, what we are without in the outside. Living within, our body, life, mind must become our antechamber, our vestibule. That's another word for the antechamber. The soul within sends its intimations, inspirations, guidance to the outer nature of body, life, and mind. Of course, the outside environment also molds and conditions us. That also we know. But it is essential to learn to live within and know our real self, the psyche, the true mind, the true vital, the true physical. It is this inner knowledge that we have to know. This is what we have said. Okay? So let's stop here today. And I wish everybody a very happy day.
Thank you, Rangana.